Boston, June 1755. The governor of Massachusetts issues an official proclamation, printed and posted in public squares. It is not a declaration of war, it is a price list. £40 for the scalp of an adult male of the Penobscot Nation. £20 for the scalp of a woman. £20 for the scalp of a child under 12. £40 was more than a farmer earned in a year. Read the document today and one question overwhelms every other. How did the people writing price lists for children's scalps end up as the heroes of the story and their victims as the savages? That is the real story of scalping. Let's be honest with the archaeology first, because this story needs honesty from both directions. Scalping did exist in North America centuries before any European arrived. At Crow Creek, in South Dakota, archaeologists uncovered the remains of a village massacre from around the year 1325, and the bones tell the story clearly. Ancient rock art depicts trophy-taking. Early explorers described the custom independently, from Florida to the Great Lakes. So note, Europeans did not invent scalping in America. What they did was something else, something in some ways darker. They turned it into an industry. What did scalping mean in native warfare? Something surprisingly specific. A scalp was proof, the receipt of a battlefield deed, carried home to verify a warrior's account. It was also, in many nations, spiritually charged. Some believed the scalp carried part of the enemy's power, and scalps were honored in ceremony, even adopted as stand-ins for lost relatives. Here is the detail Hollywood never shows: scalping was not always killing. Frontier records document dozens of people, native and white, who were scalped and survived, lived decades, wore hats. It was a trophy custom of limited, ritualized warfare, brutal by our standards, but bounded by rules. And Europe? Europe had nothing to learn about trophies of war. Herodotus described the Scythians scalping enemies 24 centuries ago. English forces brought back heads from wars in Ireland. Borderers collected grim proof of kills for pay. The colonists who stepped off the ships came from a continent of public executions, heads on city gates, and bodies displayed at crossroads. The idea of paying for proof of a dead enemy was not an American import into European minds. It was European practice, waiting for a new continent and a new currency to count it in. The bounty system began early and grew fast. New England colonies posted scalp bounties from the 1690s, New France answered with bounties of its own, and the frontier wars became a market. Pennsylvania, founded by pacifist Quakers, was paying for Delaware scalps by 1756. The rates were carefully bureaucratic: adult male, adult female, child, each with a price, payable on delivery, paperwork required. Stop and absorb what that means. Legislatures elected assemblies with clerks and minutes, debated and approved human scalps as legal tender. The savagery Hollywood pinned on the tribes was, in its most organized form, an act of government. Bounties created a profession, the scalp hunter. And the profession had a flaw its paymasters understood perfectly. A scalp has no name on it. Black hair is black hair. The scalp of a hostile warrior, a friendly ally, or a Mexican farmer paid the same. So the hunters killed whoever was easiest. In the 1830s and 40s, Mexican states put bounties on Apache scalps. Men like James Kirker and John Glanton led private companies that attacked peaceful villages, trading camps, anyone available. Kirker's men massacred Apaches who had gathered under a promise of peace. The bounty offices paid. Everyone knew. The money moved anyway. Here is the twist that should end every campfire debate: the bounty system scalped more than the tribes ever did, and it scalped everyone. Colonial rangers took native scalps. Native allies were paid for the scalps of other natives, nation set against nation by competing price lists. Whites scalped whites. During the Revolution, frontier fighters took loyalist scalps. And at Sand Creek in 1864, U.S. volunteer cavalry attacked a Cheyenne village flying an American flag and a white flag and rode back to Denver displaying scalps of men, women, and children to a cheering theater audience. The custom had no race. The industry had a sponsor. So how did the story get reversed? How did the sponsored victims become the savages? Partly propaganda in real time, colonial newspapers ran lurid captivity narratives, bestsellers of their day, where the scalping knife was always in a native hand, never in the hand of the ranger collecting a government bounty. Partly the dime novels that followed, and then a century of westerns that inherited their clichés frame for frame. Kirker got adventure stories. The Penobscot got the reputation. By the time film cameras rolled, the inversion was complete, the price list was forgotten, and the war whoop was all anyone remembered. It is worth pausing on the people who lived through it, because scalping survivors are one of history's strangest footnotes. Frontier doctors published papers on treating the scalped. A railroad worker named William Thompson, scalped in Nebraska in 1867, famously carried his own scalp in a pail to the doctor, and later donated it to a library, where it sat on display for a century. Survivors wore caps, wigs, kerchiefs, and lived ordinary lives. Their existence is grim proof of the original point. In the native custom, the scalp was the trophy, not necessarily the life. It was the bounty system that preferred bodies. Did native warfare grow crueler in response? Yes, and that is part of the honest story too. Bounties, massacres, and broken treaties fed cycles of revenge that made the frontier wars savage on every side. Comanche raids into Texas and Mexico were feared for good reason, and no serious history paints the tribes as passive saints. But scale matters, and sponsorship matters. One side's cruelty was retail, personal, ritual, retaliatory. The other side's was wholesale, budgeted, legislated, advertised in newspapers, and paid out of public treasuries for decades. Both were bloody. Only one was policy. The last scalp bounties did not fade away in some distant medieval past. Mexican states kept Apache scalp bounties on the books into the 1880s. In the United States, county and territorial bounties appeared sporadically through the Indian Wars. The practice only truly died when the wars did. Think about the timeline. There are photographs of people who lived under scalp bounty laws. Your great-great-grandparents' world still priced human hair. When the Apache leader we know as Geronimo surrendered in 1886, some of the men in his tiny band had lost family to bounty hunters. That is how close this history stands to us. So, who really started it? Ancient warriors on more than one continent. Who turned it into a business? Governments in Boston, Philadelphia, Mexico City with ledgers, clerks, and annual budgets. And who paid the price of the reputation? The nations who ended up as the villains of 10,000 movie matinees. History is not about swapping heroes and monsters, it is about putting the receipts back on the table. Next on this channel, how Plains hunters brought down 2,000-pound buffalo on foot, before the horse, and why a bow beat a musket for 200 years. Subscribe. The receipts keep coming.